It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. They thought that they live in it. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. Tell me what you gonna do. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. They thought that we live in it. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. Tell me what you gonna do.
In the land of the beast, we are found in the streets. Misguided, we eat their freedoms in the mark of the beast. Destroys my soul to know that all we seeking is peace. Tell Jah we seek we destined to remain as the least. Perception of realities, pollution can often cause confusion until the Father reveals a world of illusion designed to trap the mind behind God's will. Rise from graves when we know who we are.
Just another day in the West, living up the more for the blessings. The people who deserve the very least are the people with the most. Just another day in the West, living for the people and the presence. And still the people who the least are the people with the most.
When will the Father come, raising us all out of the ghetto slums, teaching us that our lives are the sum total of false doctrine, implemented with force, whipping a horse, which were tools of the trade in Holocaust days. Look at the many ways the media attack us. They have you thinking our occupation is carjackers, international drug trafficking, gun clappers, as if it's always the way that we were. Tragedies occur when there's new laws feeding the bellies of rich, taking food from the poor people's table. The average individual unstable, desiring change but powerless, believing they ain't able to make a difference. Buying into the system, the same that they built that's not grown up to diss them. Marley said the truth for the fence, therefore I take refuge in Allah against the guises of men.
Just another day in the West, living up the war for the lessons. The people who deserve the very least are the people with the most. Just another day in the West, praying for the people and the presence. And still the people who the least are the people with the most.
Well, I'll be rocking enemies overseas like the breeze of the Socrates of rich melodies. And if you take away the keys, singers and MCs and nothing but cheese on the shelf got a reason why we ain't ready for war every season with the big belly Babylon treason. In these days where the beast are the rebels and the poor, never ever get to be the chosen.
Just another day in the West, living up the war for the blessings. The people who deserve the very least are the people with the most. Just another day in the West, praying for the people and the presence. And still the people who the least are the people with the most. Just another day in the West, living up the war for the blessings. The people who deserve the very least are the people with the most. Just another day in the West, praying for the people and the presence. And still the people who the least are the people with the most.
Yeah, it's the conquest street. You're coming for you. Friends too. They thought that we live in it. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. Tell me what you gonna do. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. They thought that we live in it. It's the conquest street. We coming for you. Your friends too. Tell me what you gonna do.
Good evening, good afternoon, and even good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to another session of Mind Reset Live, where I am so looking forward to talking and sharing with you this evening, as with also my special guest. How's everyone doing? I want to just make sure that you can hear me. So if you can put a thumbs up or a chat in the box, that would be great, so that we know that we're good. I see we have Bola's in the house, Carol, Laura, Philippa, and of course, welcome to our Facebook streamers and YouTube. Really really pleased to have you join us this evening. We're going to have a great session and great conversation. As you know, this is the last Friday of the month, and for the entire month of June, we have been talking and sharing and introducing the GPS system. For those of you who are tuning in for the very first time, GPS stands for Grow Personal Success and was born out of the book that I wrote called the GPS system. And what does it stand for? It stands for Growing Personal Success. Why? Because I recognized and realized that we all want to be successful, whether you're 6 or 60. Everyone wants to be successful, but not everybody knows how to be successful. And so the whole book was really based on beginning to introduce concepts, because we're not taught how to be successful in school. We're taught how to do a job. And when I coined this phrase, the GPS system, was really gleaned from my spiritual mentor, but it's really kind of just opened up things for me in quite a big way. As I say, as a result of writing the book and introducing the 5 pillars of success that underpin everyone's life. This is why we're bringing this series to you, because each month we take one of those pillars and we focus every week sharing, breaking it down, and illustrating how that pillar is relevant to your life. And so this month, we've been talking about business, money, and finance. And as you know, last week we had Chris Coney, my good friend, who was talking about how the world has changed via cryptocurrency. The week before that, we had Paul Elliott and a tribute, I believe it was the week before, a tribute to my business mentor, Errol Abramson, who had run 47 businesses successfully. And tonight we have my good friend, Bola Ranson, who is a serial entrepreneur, property developer. That's really where he has made his focus. And he's going to be talking to us today about his journey and also sharing some tips about his industry, his business, and how, for those of you who might be interested in business, how you can make it or how you can learn. Potentially, he may even become your property mentor. Now, this is something I've been saying to him for the longest time, and we're making progress. It's a bit slow, but we're making progress. About a year ago or so, or just over a year, we finally had him do a live presentation, which was phenomenal. And that's after many years of asking, and even he was blown away with how well it was received. And so today we're going to bring him to just introduce him to some of you, because many of you are not familiar with him. And so this will be an opportunity to learn about him and then talk about some of the things that we have in mind, or what we would like to do in the future. But for now, let me just give some of the ground rules. So we will be talking tonight in 2 parts. Part 1 is a general invitation. So we have our guests on Facebook and we have our guests on YouTube tuning in, and we're going to talk real general. But part 2, which will be around 9 o'clock-ish, is when we go private, and that's when it is primarily and exclusively for our members, giving us an opportunity to talk and ask questions, knowing that it's in that private space. So without any further ado, I want to let me see if I can bring Bola Ranson on screen. So bear with me a moment. And I'm going to promote Bola to panelists, and he should be joining us any moment from now. Bola, are you there, sir?
Hey, Tony.
Hi, Bola. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm good. How about yourself?
Fantastic. You know what, brother? It's always smiles when I get a chance to sit and we get a chance to catch up.
Always, Tony. It's that energy of yours. It's that contagious energy of yours.
Well, I appreciate you, and we're going to talk
With a pleasure.
We're going to talk today. We were speaking over the last few days about what we were going to do, and I know that you had every intention to try and bring some projects that you were developing or working on, but I really just wanted to bring the man and introduce you, and so that people could get a sense of who you are in the first instance, and then see where it goes from there. Because one of the things that I'm wanting people to really understand when we're talking about business, money, and finance, and particularly when it comes to business, is that from my perspective, and we've been rolling for a number of years, for me, business is not about making money. Business is about relationships. And many people don't get that. I see you smiling because...
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and so many people just make that mistake, don't they? People think money first, relationship second, or actually the relationship may not even be too important, but actually relationship is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because remember, business is a journey. You get your ups, you get your downs. And there's going to be times when you're going to need to call on those relationships. So the relationships actually come first. You're absolutely right.
And this is why I wanted us to be here today, because we will be able to spit some game for some of the young ones coming up and actually also prove it, because what I find with a lot of young people, they don't really care so much about the talk. They want to see the demonstration and the evidence of it. And boy, have we've got that. Because I mean, I wanted to start off really by introducing our friendship spans over 2 decades for sure.
Yeah.
And it's one that brings joy to my mind. When we were just doing our prep earlier on, my young man Nathaniel was asking me, he was like, "How long have you known Bola?" And I told him over 20 years, and he's like, "Wow, we should all have a friend like that." And those were his words. And for me, that really was just a demonstration of really what we're talking about. So, I mean, I think it was over 20 years ago that we first...
I think when I met you, I actually, at the time I met you, I think I was running a graphic design business.
That's right.
Ranson graphics at the time. I'd started up my own business. I'd left uni, was running my business. I hadn't even sniffed property. I knew nothing about property. Property was something that at a point in my life, which I'll touch on later on, I thought, actually, I just want to learn about. I want to be a part of this. This seems interesting. And I just focused my energy and all my resources and time in just trying to learn a new industry, which has brought me to where I am now. But at the time I met you, property wasn't even in my vision. It just wasn't something I was focusing on. But It just goes to show, you can change journey at any time, you can change direction at any time, and you can control your own destiny.
And so, would you say that you're very much that kind of an individual, i.e., for you, it's really about being in control of your destiny? Have you always had that kind of a mindset?
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, just to give you a bit of a background of myself, I would answer no to that question. I'm someone that was always quite a shy person. I wasn't very confident when I was younger. I wasn't the most popular person in my peers, in my group. I wasn't someone that was picked on at school, but I certainly wasn't in that popularity bracket. Well, I came out of school a little bit shy, a little bit, as I say, lacking in confidence and drive, I suppose. And it was really when I was about 15 that I met a mentor in my life that brought me in and sort of said, "Look, I'm starting a business." A guy called Udi Cummins, actually, he's a pastor now, but he was starting a business. He was 19, I was 15. It was a hair salon, and I wanted to, I was looking for a job basically, and he said, "Look, come and work with me." I said, "I don't know how to cut hair. I don't know anything to do barbering." He said, "I'll teach you." I was like, "Oh wow." "You've got faith in me?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay." So I started working on a Saturday on a part-time basis. At the time, I thought, this guy's crazy. He trusts me enough to actually teach me and let me work in his salon. But he had faith in me. And what he also had was a great vision. This is somebody that had a great, at the time, I hadn't met anyone that could paint a picture of what they were trying to create. And the picture was so vivid and so clear, it was contagious. It was something that we were brought into at that very, very young age.
Wow.
In Tottenham High Road.
And are you saying that he was one of the first people that was able to share a vision so clearly that you bought into it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only did I buy into the vision, it made me realize at that age, in a way that just resonated, that maybe I can do something. Maybe I can create something. Because he was someone that was 19 years old, someone I could relate to, talking about creating a network of salons, and talking to us about his dreams and his ideas of what he wanted to achieve. And you could look him in the eye and see that this guy meant it. He was actually going to try and create something.
Wow.
It just resonated.
Wow.
From a young age.
And you say that today he's a pastor.
He's a pastor, yeah. We're still in contact. He's a great guy. He's a really, really nice guy. I mean, we had highs and lows at the time because he was very, very, very disciplined. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but he had his way of the way he wanted to run his business. He was running his business and the salon he was like army barrack. We were like, it felt like an army at the time. He was very military almost in the way he approached things, very, very strict. It was almost like that kind of really, really strict dad that had you, going to bed at a certain time, folding clothes a certain way, eating a certain way. And you just thought, oh gosh, please give me a break at times. Right. And that's kind of how it was sometimes. But the lessons that we learned, the people that came through that salon, all of them have become hugely successful in their own way. So great props to him. And clearly he had a formula that worked and certainly helped us to shape the future, our own futures.
Wow.
From a visionary perspective.
That's incredible. So really from the age of 15 now, when you met him, it turned the light bulb on for you, really.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And then you went all gun blazing, really, because when I met you a few years later, when you just come out of university, I remember meeting you and thinking, this guy, he's not playing. Like, the spirit of excellence was always there where Bola was concerned, and you were a grafter. I remember, I don't remember what the scene was, but there was a particular occasion where it just struck a chord. Something had gone wrong, and we're young in those days, and everyone just sort of gets upset, but you didn't, and you probably won't even remember, but it made an impression on me, and I'm like, yeah, this guy, he's serious, and I just made a mental note,
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're because at a relatively early age, I started a graphic design marketing business, and it was just around the time I finished uni, Ranson Graphics it was called at the time, and I started at home in my bedroom, my mum's house. And a friend of mine asked me to design a leaflet for an African Caribbean Society event. I think it was. I knew nothing about design, nothing about leaflets, knew nothing. But he knew that I used to run a small, or I was working on producing this small kind of magazine. Because if I take things back one more step, I studied computer science at university. And I did a 4-year sandwich course. So my year out in industry, I couldn't find a job. No, there's nothing available. So I had this idea of starting a magazine, a computing magazine, to help people find jobs when they leave uni. It's going to be called Computing and Office Jobs. So I approached my lecturers at the time and said, look, I haven't been able to find a placement, but how about this idea? How about I start do a self-employed placement? I've got this concept for a magazine and I'd like you guys' support. Initially, it was like, a self-employed placement? Not too sure about this one. But they went away and spoke to the heads and the heads of the department, and they came back and said, actually, Bola, it's a really good idea because it'd be great experience for you and good luck. So they gave me the thumbs up. And that year, I learned so much. I mean, I had so many highs and also so many lows, because here was me trying to produce a magazine, which involved designing it, obviously, getting the content, which meant getting on the phone and trying to make sales and to sell space. I knew nothing about sales. I knew nothing about magazines. I knew nothing about anything. I just had an idea that I wanted to fulfill. But it was a long, hard task. You know, I realized very quickly people weren't going to just buy and spend money with you for the sake of spending money with you. You needed to have an offering, a very clear offering. So I had to keep going back to the drawing board and trying to rethink, how can I make this thing unique? What can I do here to make people want to spend money in this magazine? So it was a very, very hard slog. And even when the magazine was designed, I didn't have to take it to get printed. I learned a lot about the print process and the production process. When that was all done, I had to distribute it. I hadn't even thought about a distribution strategy when so I had to suddenly start to work up a distribution strategy. I soon realized that wasn't easy. So I had to create my own one. And I was literally driving around the country trying to convince universities to stock this magazine and to distribute it. It was a really, really tiring process. It was unbelievably tiring. I remember a time when I was so exhausted from working around the clock that I fell asleep behind the wheel and crashed my car. Wow. Luckily, I wasn't injured, but it was a real eye-opener. And I think around that time, I realized that, and I felt like, oh my gosh, it just feels like it's just too much. I remember a time when, right at that moment, when I just thought to myself, what would I give right now to just have a job? Just paying me anything, something. Seriously. I think I even applied for a job at the time in Asda. It was, the grocery store, Asda. Yeah. For an advertisement, for a position there. And I applied for it. I remember it was advertising £14,000 salary. And I just thought, this is something it's an escape route. I just need a break from what I'm doing. I didn't get the job, and it's probably a good thing in the end, because it forced me to go back and to continue and to see the project through to the end. But I tell you what, Tony, the lessons I learned from that experience have been invaluable to me today. Wow. Lessons about highs and lows. You know, you just literally understanding the fact that you are going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows. It's just part of the journey. It's not always going to be high. It's not always going to be low. I learned lessons about, obviously, just business principles, negotiation, sales, marketing. I learned about, forming a USP, networking, just communicating as well, being able to go to people and talk and not be scared. Because before that, remember, I was quite a shy young man. Yeah. And it helped me to build my confidence, helped me to improve my delivery. There's so many aspects that I learned, even though I didn't make a penny. And that really, really helped, me to become, the man I am today.
And it's important that you said that, because here we are, we're talking about business, we're talking about money, and yet you're saying in your first project, you didn't make any money. Now that's an interesting thing, but yet, however many years later, you're saying it was invaluable, meaning that you couldn't actually put a price on what you learned.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because, in life, and a lot of life's lessons, a lot of when you're on that journey to becoming successful or to become the person you want to be, whatever that might be, you soon realize that it is a journey, and there is going to be experiences you have to encounter to get there. I learned in my own way that this is just what happens. And I was quite fortunate as well, because I was quite young. I didn't have a huge amount of responsibilities at the time. Maybe I would have taken a different path if I had, but it really, really helped me to understand the basic principles of not just business, but also life as a whole. And I use that as a platform because at the end of that 1 year period, what I did come away realizing is that I enjoyed designing things. That's the one thing I did enjoy. And I also learned how to become a great designer in the process of developing this magazine. And that brings me back to why the friend approached me and said, look, can you design me a leaflet for an event he was hosting? I think it was South Bank University at the time. So I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So, designed this leaflet, produced it. I spent about a week or so designing this product that should have probably only taken a few hours, but I really wanted to make it a masterpiece. It was just a small leaflet for a small event. But lo and behold, produced this and designed this great piece, showpiece, presented it. He handed them out, and they went down a tree. And that leaflet generated some more business. It was literally grassroots. When you talk about starting a business from the ground, this is what this was. Yes. I then got quite a large company approached me wanting to do a series of events. And they said, look, we want to do an event, and this is what we want to do. I said, great, no problem at all. Again, they gave me the instruction. I spent a huge amount of time perfecting it. I took a lot of pride at that time in getting it right. It wasn't about the money at all. Wow. It was just about getting it right. And So this second, commission that I was given, this second instruction, when I finished it after another week or two of working on it, it was a masterpiece. I handed the product to them. They went out, they distributed it. It was a talk of the town.
Yeah, and that's how you blew up in all of the events, because everyone that was doing events,
yeah, absolutely,
they wanted to come to Bola Ranson.
At the time, absolutely, every single leaflet on every corner, every event, every promoter, they were all coming through. And I think it was around about the time I probably met you as well, Tony.
Yeah, because I was doing promotions at the time, and I saw your piece of work, and I was like, I remember my background was architecture, so I know about detail. And I was like, this guy, whoever put this together, like, they're not playing. We need to find out who it is. And that's how we hooked up. And little did I know that it was going to be the start of an incredible journey, because yes, we did some work then, and everyone did their own thing. But then, for me, what was really amazing was many years later, then we hook up by chance after not seeing each other for some time. And it was in the most amazing experience, because I was looking for property at the time. My children were living on a council estate with myself. And obviously my son was in his teens. And I was really kind of quite concerned about him, being on a council estate, because we all know what happens on council estates. And I'd been searching for a year, looking for a property, found a property, got gazumped. And then someone told me about this property that was around in the local area. And I was like, yep, I'm interested. And I don't know if you actually remember, but I looked at the property, and then I was told that the property's gone. And I was so deflated. And I was like, I remember going home that night, going on my hands and knees and saying, look, God, I've been searching for a year. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it because of my children. And if it's gone, well, that's it. I'm like, I get upset like that sometimes. I'm like, right, well, I'm not doing anything else until you show me. And I remember that was around October. And then in January of 2006, I get a phone call from this gentleman called Bola, and says, Tony, that property deal that I brought to you that was gone? Well, if you're interested, it's back on the market, but you've got to be able to move within 2 weeks. I was like, let's go. Let's go. And it was the most, well, today, I have to say, it was the sweetest deal I've ever made, I've ever had. And I say that because I truly think it was blessed, and I share that backstory because I truly believe it was blessed, and the blessing came through you. I just want to show people, and let me see if I can share my screen. I want to just show our audience what it looks like, because I knew we were going to be here today, so I thought I'd bring an image. So let's see. Can you see my screen, Bola?
Yes.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's just one of the properties, but we were able to do that deal in, I think it was under 3 or 4 weeks, Bola. Do you remember?
Absolutely. It was very, very quick. We were going for a moment where, we were selling properties sometimes in a day, 2 days. Because of the way we package these properties and package the offering, the units were going fast. So when I called you and said, look, you're gonna have to move quick, you had to move quick. But you know what, it really, really makes me smile when I hear stories of people that have bought properties for us over the years, when I hear the stories of how they've done well. It's reassuring, and it just gives me that warmth. So I'm really, really happy to hear how the journey's been for you on the property market.
Well, I mean, and it got better because, like, as my son looks up to you and sees you as an uncle. I mean, he's come and worked with you in your office, but it was a game changer because here I was prior to that. I've been living on a council estate, and obviously I'm not going to go into the details because my members know my journey, but it was a critical moment in time for me and my young children, because here I was, and yes, I bought the property from you as an investment property, but but I knew it was a golden opportunity for me to teach my children and show my children something. And so, I found a way to make it work, but we moved into a £500,000 property, and it was life-changing in terms of their aspirations. And I think you'd agree with me that it's really important that we show our young ones coming up that they can and should be aspirational and doing it the right way, not shotting drugs or stuff like that, but hard work with vision, with relationships. And I think certainly my son learned that, and that's why when he came back into the UK and was figuring out what he wanted to do, he was interested in property, and you were the only person that he could think of that he would like to come and work with. But what was even more amazing, and I don't even remember the second part of this particular deal, was you came and you showed me the unit, and then in conversation you just happened to mention, well, there's only one unit left. And then I made a crazy cheeky statement. I was like, well, Bola, if it's the only unit left, why don't you ask them if if they're prepared to let the other one go? And then you asked me, Tony, how much have you got? And I won't disclose how much it was, because it was a tiny amount. And you actually laughed and said, well, they're probably not going to take it, but I'll mention it to them. And then you went and you mentioned it to them, and then came back and said, Tony, you must be the luckiest person because they've taken the deal. So I got 2 properties literally for the price of one. We moved at such pace, and it was only after when we done the deal, I was like, Bola, what the hell happened? And then we found out that literally someone who had paid a deposit had not got their paperwork in order. And so they paid a deposit of, I don't know if it was 100, 200 grand, but they'd lost the deposit. So the developer had literally, in effect, not only had the developer made their money, but it was almost as if someone had, a stranger who I've never met, paid the deposit with me. And it was just amazing. So, I always say it, and I'm always, my heart's always warmed when I have the opportunity to say, thank you for making such a big difference in my life. And so obviously I saw what you were then doing. And I mean, you were really, again, bringing all of your skills, all of your talents, all of the discipline that you had into setting up a business that was solid. And I say that because what I found astounding was everyone I spoke to concerning your business. So I spoke to the guy in Foxtons, I spoke to other estate agents. Everybody had nothing but exemplary remarks when they spoke about Bola and Ranson. And I mean, was that a deliberate intention that you set about being a brother going into the property market, wanting to just have that spirit of excellence throughout everything that you do?
Well, here's the funny thing, and the bizarre thing about it is when I bought my first property back in 2000, I wasn't even buying that property with the view that I was going to set up a property business. I was, running the graphic design business, Ranson UK, Ranson Media, Ranson Graphics, sorry. It was, while we were successful in terms of market control, it was a very volatile sector. So we were doing a lot of work with club promoters and events promoters, and quite often the events would go bad. So they'd sometimes take your product and you expect them back on a week later to come pay the balance, and they don't turn up. So it was a very volatile time, and I wanted to invest in something. I actually had some money saved up, and I thought I actually want to put some money into something a bit more stable. Bought my first property, rented it out, had some rental income coming in, and I thought, isn't this great? I've got this thing, this asset that I've just bought, which is generating me money because it was rented out. My mortgage, I think, was about £300. The rent was about 500. Actually, it was 600. So I had £300 coming in, and I was doing nothing. And I thought, this is good. I had a little bit more money left at the time, and I bought a second one. And before I knew it, I had these 2 properties. It's around 2001, generating passive income of about £600. It's around the time I started to really understand the power of passive income and acquiring assets. And I remember I used that surplus. My mortgage was paid for, and I used that surplus to buy myself a brand new Porsche Boxster at the time. And I was like, this is fantastic. I want to really spend my time and energy in learning this sector. So I spent the next few years, literally, I sold the graphic design business and spent all my effort and time learning as much as I could about the property sector. I went to events, spoke to brokers, spoke to contacts. I literally made it my mission to find out everything there was to learn about this sector. And what I was doing is I learned about another important strategy when it comes to property acquisition, which was gearing. So I was buying, I was literally acquiring more. Because this was about 2002, 2003, when the market was about to go crazy. So at that time, property prices were rising at a rate of about 10 to 20% per annum. So if you imagine, I bought a property in January. By May, June, the property has risen by about 15% in value. So I was refinancing, putting out the equity, using that to buy some more properties.
Wow!
It was an amazing time, but at the same time, I didn't really understand. I didn't really have any. I was quite naive to the market because it was 2001, 2002, early 2003. So I didn't really understand that markets can go both ways. So here was me buying these properties, accelerating my portfolio growth. I was learning more and more about clever ways to fund deals and to package deals. We're building up great relationships with banks. So we were able to package finance with the properties and do lots and lots of clever, quirky and wonderful things. And then lo and behold, my friends and my family started to ask me, they could see I was starting to build up a large portfolio of properties. And so, how are you doing it? And I was like, oh, let me help you. So rather than me going into developers and buying one property, I was suddenly talking to them about buying 4, then 5, then 10. The numbers just started to grow. And that's when I realized, actually, I've got a property business here. And it was quite clear niche. My business was all about, at that time, the business was all about buying properties in bulk, negotiating a discount and selling them to investors. But
can I ask you to pause there for a moment? Because I want to tease out something again that you just said. So you were just doing your thing solo. And then through relationships, people started asking you if you could help them. And because you understand the value of relationships, you obliged. And in doing so, that grew your business.
Absolutely. My focus in business has never, ever, ever been money first. Never. It's always about helping people, building relationships. Helping people is the key. You've got to be thinking, in my opinion, you've got to be thinking when you create a business or create anything, you've got to be thinking about how can I make a positive impact on people's lives. It's got to start from there.
Wow. Bola, please continue. Say, I mean, you've said it. And so I know that people are going to be listening and they're going to be learning because they weren't expecting to hear stuff like what you're saying. So please continue.
Yeah, well, so here I am with this property business. And, I realized that actually there's a great USP we've got here because we can be helping developers because developers, quite often they'd be building flats and they'd have the vast majority of properties sold, but they might have a few left unsold, maybe 10 units left, but they want to get off site and they want to dispose of them quickly. They don't want to go to the market and advertise a discount because it kills the value of their site. What can they do? Well, here we are. We were the exit route. We would take those units off market, all low key, negotiate a large discount, typically 20-25%. And we pass that discount on to our investors, take a small margin for ourselves. And that was our business model. In fact, that's exactly how you got your property.
Yeah. Took the last two and wow.
And the business literally went through the roof because what we were doing, not only were we solving a developer problem in helping them to dispose of units, we also were helping buyers like yourself to acquire properties well below the market value. And in addition to those two, we were packaging finance that made the opportunity so much easier than the traditional routes of buying property.
I mean, that was if I don't know if you remember, but we didn't even meet. Like the deal was done in less than 4 weeks, literally, and it was all done by post. You said, right, Tony. The next day, it came through the post. I looked for it. I scratched my head a little bit because the numbers were crazy. Remember, here I was a council tenant paying rent, and now I'm seeing them like 2 mortgages for like £750,000.
Yeah.
But
And that was £750,000 back in 2004 or 5.
Exactly.
It would be significantly more now in today's
exactly. And so, but because of the relationship, and I have to echo the point because, I spoke to a lot of people. Like, should I do it? Should I do it? And everyone was like, it's too good to be true. It's too good to be true.
And it's interesting. You heard that. I used to hear that. Believe it or not, I used to hear that quite a bit.
Yeah.
More from my finance friends. So if anyone's in banking, they're used to seeing almost looking for risk in everything.
Yes.
Excessive risk. So quite often they'll be the ones that say, and they diver a lot more than your regular everyday professionals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard that before as well. I've heard something.
Because you see, for me, and this is why I say to people that you must have your own mind. Because I was looking at my personal circumstance and what had happened for the whole year. And then, then me being in that place where I'm like, God, you need to come through. When it came through in the form of a friend, someone that I knew, I was like, no, this is definitely going to be okay. And I used my mind and I looked at the figures and I'm like, I think I can make this work. Let's go for it. And I say that because it also demonstrates that in business, you have to be brave and bold and step outside of your comfort zone sometimes. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a very, very important lesson as well. Stepping out of the comfort zone is something that we're at some point, all of us are in that zone. And you kind of thinking, should I not? My first main big property deal, I remember it involved 31 flats. This was back in 2003, 4. And I almost didn't want to do that deal. I wasn't comfortable. It was too many units. And I remember another friend of mine, we sat down and I spoke about it. I said, look, I'm thinking about doing 10 and I'm not too sure. It's just a lot of units. Even though I've got a lot of clients interested, I felt like it was taking on a lot. I wasn't comfortable. And he was like, we can do it together. I'll take on some of the risk. And it was just great for me at that time to have a relationship with a good friend that I could trust. Again, relationships coming in here.
Right.
And I thought, actually, that's a great idea. Let's do this together. Let's go for it. And we did. And so we took on those 31 flats at the time in Canary Wharf area and shifted them. They were also shifted very, very quickly.
Wow. And that was the beginning of...
Yeah, and pretty much that was the start of the business, 2003, 4, and we kind of all just ran from there.
Yeah,
we were getting phone calls, we were shifting units very, very quickly, mainly because of not only the discount, but also the fact we're able to package the finance in a way it made it very, very easy to purchase.
Yeah,
people were able to, we would sometimes shift in units in a few days, typically.
Yeah. Well, I saw it, I experienced it, and those deals, you can't get those kind of deals today.
The market's definitely changed in many ways because obviously when 2008 happened, 2007-8, when the credit markets crashed, lenders' attitude to risk changed.
Yes.
Because obviously suddenly lenders are thinking, we want to de-risk a lot of our loans. So the way in which we were packaging deals had to change too.
Yeah.
So we still offer people the opportunity to do similar things, to acquire property below market value. We source for a lot of overseas wealthy funds and institutions and private investors. So we're still in the space doing multiple things, and we're still adding value to people that are looking to buy properties.
Wow. Well, now this is the bit that people want to hear about now, because now we're into today's time and climate. And we have some members, and about my vision. Again, it's always thinking about people. So I know that we have some people here who know that I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we've been having conversations for years really about how I can support some of our members. And you've given me some ideas, some game about the idea of, having 3 or 4 people buy into one property and that sort of thing. And, but the time wasn't right. And again, because of the relationship, we had that incident, which I need to mention, where I was going to buy that property from you back in 2017. And I must say, I cherish our relationship and our friendship even more as a result of that, because as you said, sometimes there were highs and sometimes there were lows. And I'll never forget the day that I came in and phoned you, and everything was in place, and you had worked with me for months, because I remember having conversations with you in December at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And you know, and then to get to the point when I think it was in February, like everything had been done, lawyers, I paid, all of the fees had been paid, and we literally had to sign. And then Tony comes in and says that, you know, he had this dream and he can't do the deal. And Bola's like, and I was like, how am I going to say this to my friend? Because I'm going to look like the most craziest jerk on the planet. But, you know, I had to go with my spirit. I didn't understand it. And I just said, well, I know it doesn't make sense, but I can't do the deal. And you said, Tony, well, think about it over the weekend. And then, you know, if you still feel that same way, then fine. And I slept over it over the weekend, and it was still the same. In fact, I'd met someone, and I was just compelled that was not for me. And you took it so graciously. I was like, this guy's incredible. I'm like, you know, and I think you were able to shift the unit, but it later on all began to make sense, because within 6 weeks, your mortgage guy contacted me and was able to set up another deal where I was able to, you know, refinance. And the upshot of that was that those funds that I was going to invest in property, I've now ended up investing into cryptocurrency. And again, I realize now why that, you know, that vision or that dream occurred to me, because it was the best move I've ever made. Again, second to your property. And I see how life works sometimes, you know, and the beauty of that was, even though that had gone, you know, because it was an inconvenience for you, I know. You didn't say it, but I know.
Just a little, Tony.
You know, I'm like, I'm not his favorite guy right now. But here we are, you know, within a year or so, I'm back talking to you about what I found cryptocurrency. And I'm in your office in December 2017. In fact, what am I talking about? It's the same year. I'm back in your office with Chris Coney, and we're sitting down and we're talking about this whole crypto space. By the way, I had Chris here just last week talking about it. So I mentioned that just to demonstrate to people that we're not just talking these theories about, you know, the ups and downs of life and relationships, but we've actually lived it. And we're still here today to tell the story. In fact, you know, I've been talking to you about what we're looking at doing with our members. And I want to bring it up to modern day, in the sense that, is that still something that we can, you know, look at? I mean, I've been looking at some of these properties in Battersea, and I know you're aware of that whole development that's going on.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at doing is actually creating a company with shareholders, and then using the monies that we're looking to generate to invest in cryptocurrencies as well as properties.
Yeah.
Tell us, is that something that is
absolutely, you know, Tony? I mean, in fact, I'm looking at that as we speak, because I mean, the two challenges you hear most people talk about in terms of getting onto property ladder is raising a deposit. Let's face it, it's not easy. The average property price in London, in particular, probably, you know, £600,000 probably. To raise a deposit isn't easy for most people, and so that's the one big challenge you hear. And the other one is actually getting a mortgage to facilitate that type of size loan. But on the deposit front, I mean, this whole idea of crowdfunding, we call it crowdfunding, the property purchase. That, in my view, is a fantastic strategy. And I'm always looking at ways, because, like I said earlier, for me, it's always about, you know, what problem can I solve? How can I help the market? Not how can I make money, but how can I help people to solve this challenging situation that we're in? And one of the things I'm looking at the moment is exactly what you just said there. the idea of creating a platform that enabled people to come together and buy a property. So the idea is that our business would secure the property below market value. The investors, the crowd funders, the 3 or 4, 10, 100 people come together and buy it. We manage it. We pay out the dividends as rents to the investors. And to take it to the next level is, there's also the opportunity to offer people the ability to not just invest using pound sterling, but with some of these payments services and payment platforms, you can actually get them to invest using cryptocurrency. So they could buy their shares in multiple currencies, multiple ways, and generate return on a monthly basis. The bit that I'm working on and trying to fine tune is the exit. Because for me, the key thing about buying a property, the great thing that property is an asset. It's a great wealth creator and wealth holder. But I'm working on the exit model, because my belief is that there are a few platforms that try and get people to come together to buy properties. But the way that if someone wants to get out for whatever reason, that route out isn't clear. So I'm trying to come up with an exit route that's crystal clear for everybody and that works for everybody.
This is interesting, because it looks like we're hashing something together as we speak. I know that my son came and was working with you. Was it on this particular project?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, and he said it was fantastic. And so maybe there's another dinner.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'd be happy to sit down for dinner with you again, Tony, anytime.
Well, because where we're at now, we're at an exciting time. Chris has now been approached by an agency called Wise Agency. They've been operating in the space for over 50 years, and they've seen his credibility and his standards as a staunch crypto knowledgeable guy. And so we are now accessing their research in terms of knowing how the market trends are flowing where cryptocurrency are concerned, and also a basket of other currencies. And so with that, my vision is almost similar to your model, starting off with just 100 individuals who want to invest in property and the whole crypto space with a minimum injection of 10,000, and we've raised £1 million then, and then we can go into the market and do all sorts of things. And like I'm saying, I know that's how you kind of started your business, and I've taken that model, but it also means that we can access all of these different things simultaneously. So definitely, I think we're going to have a discussion, and we've got an accountant as part of the team now who's showing us how we can do exit strategies and things of that nature. So, okay, this might be the time, Bola.
It may well be.
Because I remember back in 2017, I put it to you and said, look, Bola, what if you was to invest? And at that time, if you remember, one of our members wanted to invest £100,000, but we decided not to go with it. And you'd said, Tony, yep, I'll invest 10,000, but I never did it, because for me, the relationship is more important than the money. And so if I'm not 150%.
Okay. Yeah. There you go again. Always the case. And just going back to what you'd said as well, when you decided you didn't want to proceed back in 2017 with that deal, one thing we never did as a business, we would always make sure that the person investing was comfortable. That was always the most important thing. When you're making a decision like a property purchase, it's a life-changing decision. So you need to be comfortable. And therefore, we never really were ever about trying to convince people why they should do it. We would present the opportunity, we present the benefits, we present the risk as well, so that they know what they're getting into. If someone felt that it wasn't for them, then it wasn't for them. Yeah. But people have to be comfortable.
Wow. And I really, today, I knew that us just having a conversation, people would really get your essence, because like I said, it's about relationship first. I wanted them to know Bola, the human being, the person who is an investor in relationships first before anything else. Because then when I say, you know what, we are doing this project and Bola's involved or Chris Coney's involved, then people will understand the caliber and the quality of the minds and the hearts that are involved in the project. So I'm excited. Yeah, we're definitely going to have that hookup.
And I'm ready. I'm ready. Just let me know, Tony, man. I'll be there. I'll be first at the dinner table.
Wow. Because I know that you've been developing this project for a number of years, but wanting to get it absolutely right.
Yeah, that's right. Because we're in a quite fast changing market. It's about well, apart from it just being timing of entry into the market, but it's also, as I say, it's about finding the right platform to bring people together. It's about having the right exit strategy for the properties and for the investors. That's the one that works with the investors. And it's also about being different in a marketplace that can sometimes be a little bit crowded. So I do a lot of what I tend to do with businesses. I don't tend to rush to market. I tend to really deep dive in and really try to analyze the detail first before I come to market. Because what I like to do is, when I come to market, the product be right and it just work for people.
Wow. And hence that's why you've been able to build this reputation within the sector, because I mean, you've got a very good relationship with a lot of the big boy developers in London, right?
Yeah, that's right. So when we going back to when we kind of started, I suppose, when I started the business of Ranson UK Limited and what it was doing back when we bought up 30 odd flats in East London, Canary Wharf. Around that time, when I realized we had a business here, almost like, wow, actually, there is a business here. So from that moment on, I started to build relationships with all the big developers, not just developers, house builders, also some large private investors. But I know a lot of the sales directors, operations directors, marketing directors on a first name basis. So they would just call me and say, look, Bola, we've got 15 flats, we've got 20 flats that we need to shift. Are you interested? Sometimes it wouldn't work for us because there was particular criteria that it had to hit. I knew what my investors were looking for. I knew what we could shift quickly. I knew what the appetite was. And also we were analyzing. We would essentially protect a lot of the investors by making sure we only got involved in schemes that we thought the value and the scope to grow was there.
Right.
The product was overpriced, or if the product was just maybe out of town, didn't really work, wasn't close to transport. We didn't always take it. So it was always about finding the right deals and then presenting those deals and getting involved.
I mean, and that's fantastic, because what that again communicates to our audience is that, like you said, in this fast changing world, if one understands that it's about relationships first and then expertise. So, rather than trying to do things ourselves, if we can work with someone like yourself who is an expert in your area, then we're going to get the best, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. It's about working with contacts. One of the great things, as I say, when I decided to get into property, I made it my mission to find out as much as I could. But I started talking to experts. I started talking to people that knew their sector. And that's how I was able to move quickly,
Right.
get into a position where I could make decisions quickly. But I was able to rely on solid people with solid knowledge. So building your contacts and building your relationship with the right people is key. Again, it goes back to relationships, but you also have to invest the time wisely and invest in the time building relationships with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the time is right now, in that we can see how COVID has changed the world in many respects. And also, as a result of that, business, how we do business, the financial markets, everything is going through a flux, which for me indicates a golden opportunity if one is poised perfectly well. Would you agree, disagree?
Absolutely. I always say, opportunities come out of changing circumstances. When markets change and whenever there's a shift in the economy or in the world, there's always opportunities to present themselves. And it's always about looking at the market, looking at the economy, looking at the world, and just seeing what value, where value can be added. I always say, try to see the positive in a difficult situation. Some of the biggest businesses, some of the most powerful businesses were actually created in recessions.
Absolutely, for sure. And what I'm finding and have found since 2017 to this day is that our members are struggling with getting into the property market for the reasons that you've just explained. And then the other thing that they're struggling with is getting into the crypto space.
Yeah.
And so our thing is, if we can bring those two things together, under one umbrella with experts in those sectors, then we could help a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's property is something that as I said earlier on, a lot of people want to get involved in. Everybody understands that it's if you buy correctly, it's a fantastic asset to have within your family, within your empire. Getting people involved and showing people and assisting people in trying to achieve that, certainly something that we should be doing. We're always looking to support people.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, would you say that one of the reasons why you've thrived is because, particularly in our community, trust is an issue? And so conversely, when someone or people find a name or a brand that they can trust, they're like all over it.
Yeah, I think that plays a part. Definitely. I mean, it's unfortunately there is some truth there. It can be the trust in our community, trust in our own. But one of the things that's obviously helped us, helped me when I grow my businesses, is that we've done it. With the deals that I'll be offering people, more often than not, I would have bought property myself there.
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah.
5 flats and I've already bought one. I'm proceeding with one myself. So you make a decision. So that gave people a lot of reassurance. So people knew that they were trusting in someone that was actually walking the walk as well.
Yeah.
So I think the track record and the experience that we had also helped people to sort of jump on board and to buy into what I was selling.
Yeah. And of course, everybody wants to get involved in property. They just needed some guidance, and you were there at the time, making the right moves, shaking it and of course, and doing it. So fantastic. I'm mindful of the time, so I want to draw to a close with regards to our guests on Facebook and YouTube. So I'd like to ask you, what would be your top 3 tips or guiding principles that you'd like to leave our audience with before we go into the private Q&A? And for those of you, if you do want to join us in the private Q&A, my team will put in the link. You can join our membership, even if it's only for 1 month. It's on a monthly basis, but then you get the opportunity to gain insights with people like Bola, who, it would certainly cost you more than £40 to have a session with him. So if you'd like to join us, check the link. It's going to be in the chat, and you can join us on the other side of 9 o'clock. But over to you, Bola.
Well, I mean, there's a different way to answer that question. I mean, if we're talking, 3 tips in terms of property, it might differ from 3 tips relating to life as a whole. But what I would say, if I were to come up with a couple of tips that I think can help people to achieve success, whether that be property or life as a whole, I would say one is knowledge, because obviously to become very good at any area, whether that's property, whether that's finance, whether that's health, whether that's meditation, you need to have the knowledge. So you're going to have to take time to learn your field. When I was starting up in property, I made it my sole purpose to go out there and find out as much as I could about property. And that's what I did. And that's where I spent my energy. So you've got to take time to go out there, build up your knowledge on the area, the field, the subject area that you want to become a master of. The other thing is you have to, I think it's great to specialize, be a specialist. Don't try and be a jack of all trades. So again, when we were selling properties, well, we still are, but what I'm saying is when we started off in business, I realized I had a business because not many people were doing, I don't think there were any, really doing what we were doing the way we were doing it. We were acting as an exit route, a clearance house for developers wanting to sell properties that they couldn't sell. That wasn't really happening there. So we were a specialist, which is why all the developers were quite happy to call us. They knew that if they had a scenario, if they're selling properties for normal list price and they're selling well, don't call us. But if you're struggling and you need to shift units, your backs are against the wall, phone me and let's have a conversation. So we were specializing. So specializing is very, very important as well.
Wow.
So have the knowledge, specialize. And I think the other thing I'd say is you've got to be patient. You've got to be patient with yourself. Things don't happen immediately and overnight. So be kind on yourself. You know, try to be patient. Try to understand that things can take time, and use that patience wisely to learn more, to acquire that knowledge, to specialize in your product. And going back to how we started the conversation, relationships. Make sure that you treat people well, engage with people well, and just remember that people will help you and work with you, and things will happen when you form the right relationship. Quite often you're even on the wrong path, but you just got the right contacts, and you'll be just guided back onto the right path if you build the right relationships.
Wow.
So relationships are also important. So that's probably the 4 things I'd say.
Wow. You even, and that's Bola all over. I asked for 3, you gave us 4. I mean, you know, always over deliver. And you gave some real game. And I know some of our young folk will be just like, oh, they're going to watch this over again, and we're going to share it and promote it through our wider audience. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening, our guests. Next week, we're going to be in the month of July. So our focus for that whole month will be around spirituality. And I'll be sharing and breaking down in a little bit more detail what actually transpired, even in some of the conversations I've been having with Bola, those experiences that I had, and how you can actually use and bring spirituality into business. It's going to be really exciting and really groundbreaking. So I hope you can join us for that. But for now, I would like to say good night to you on Facebook and YouTube. It's good night from me, Tony Dada, your soul brother, and good night from Mr. Bola Ranson.
A pleasure, Tony. Always a pleasure with you.
All right.
Have a great night.
All right. Brilliant. So stick around, Bola. I'm just going to stop the sharing. Bear with me a moment. Now, I just need to make sure I know how to do this. And then we can continue in our private conversation.
Sure.
Okay. Pause, stop recording.